Anything else? Happy. Exactly. So now you see, even with one image that we see every day, few of you have different answers, right? Because according to your logic, according to the model that you have in your head, you can interpret the same image in different ways. And sometimes this happens with the artificial intelligence too. It sees some data, but it can interpret it in a different way according to what it has learned over time. So let's see something else. Okay, so how does it work? We got it. Like there is some logic, something going on that is making a decision for us. But how does it learn that? What happens? So for computers, what happens is that it looks at a lot of data and it tries to create patterns. In fact, this is what we all did when we were kids, right? Your parents would show you an apple every day in the books of fruits, and then they'll say, this is an apple, and this is a banana, and this is a guava, right? And you learn that over a period of time. We don't realize that, and we think that we are able to learn very quickly, but that process has been going on for days and months before you actually get that concept, and that's how you learn it. The same way it happens in the computer systems as well. You give it a lot and lot of data, and it then recognizes that patterns, and then it's able to predict that, right? So this process of learning, because it's a computer learning, it's called machine learning. And the final thing that it learns is called a model. So right now we saw when we were writing the code, it was so difficult, right? Like you would get one thing, one semicolon wrong, and it would not give the results, right? So, but now people were like, okay, it's giving us so many errors. Can it just learn? Can we just give it the data? What if we gave it a lot of blue color or green color, and it's able to learn that this is green color? Then you don't have to write like background slash is equal to green, right? So that's what we are trying to do when we are thinking of artificial intelligence. So let's take an example again. So suppose this is the data that you are seeing. What do you think would explain these dots? There are a lot of dots. What kind of a shape do you think these dots will be? Like you can explain these dots. Like what pattern are they following? Are they following a circle, a line, a rectangle? What kind? Go ahead. It's following a linear pattern. Yeah, so that's a good starting point, right? You look at it and you say that, you know what, I think it's some kind of a line, and I'll start with some random line to describe this data. What happens is that when it learns, it goes through each and every data point, it fixes itself, it looks at the errors, and finally it will have something which is a line, but it might be not the same line that you started with. But this learning is called machine learning, and the final results that you get is called a ML model, right? Does that make sense or not? Okay, let's take another example. What pattern do you think this set of points are showing? Anyone? Go ahead. Huh? Yeah, this is the data, but what pattern is it showing? Is it like the earlier one was a linear pattern? What do you think is this one? Is it like a square, a rectangle, a circle? What is it? Go ahead. Square. So let's say, we started with square. So when you start with something, you're starting with an algorithm in mind, right? Like to describe the problem. And then you take the data and fix that algorithm to finally get a model. So in this case, when it learned the data, it realized that it was not actually a square, but maybe more like a circle, right? So that's your model. Okay. So now let's go a little bit deeper into something. And these are just more like different kind of machine learning, but I want to spend a little bit more time later into what are the issues with machine AI and how each one of us can do our part to really fix and make AI better. So very quickly, there are two types of learning. We learned what machine learning is, right? Now, supervised learning is when you have a data with a label. So in this case, you are saying all these images are my apples. Now go ahead and learn this pattern and then figure out whatever like this apple is. So what happens is you get an ML model that can answer the question whether something is an apple or not. So if you give it a new image, it will give you an answer that it is an apple. It's as simple as that. It learns a pattern, and then if you ask it a question, just simple question, is it an apple or not? And it will say yes. If you give it anything else, it will say no. Okay. And it's called supervised learning because you were telling this model that giving it an image and saying it's an apple, like you were supervising it. The other kind of learning is called unsupervised, in which you don't give the labels, you just give it a lot of data that you figure out what is going on. In that case, the model will learn that there are two patterns. It doesn't know that one of them is apple and one of them is banana. It just knows that there are two patterns. So because there was no label given to it. So this is called unsupervised learning. And it can answer the question like whether it matches the pattern or not. So now, what is the problem? What happens is, this is all good, right? We can give AI a lot of data, it can learn, it can help us solve problems, it can help us answer questions. The problem comes is that it is very, very specific to the data that we provided, right? So if we have shown it red apples, now, like I asked you girls, that what is it? And if I would have shown you a green apple, you would have figured out it's a green apple, right? But if I give a green apple to an AI model and it has never seen a green apple before, it will say that it's not an apple. And so what is the problem here? Like, it's fine, it's not a big problem. We can give it green apple and then it will start giving us the answer. But what happens is that AI, like we discussed in the beginning, it's everywhere in our everyday life, no matter what you're doing, whether you are using an online website to order something or whether you are going and listening to the music, everything is driven by AI. And if that AI is based on the data that was fed to it, it is making biased decisions, right? So an example is that if we gave AI a lot of pictures of a woman cooking, right? Then even if we gave them a picture of a man cooking, they would assume that this is a woman, right? Now, this is basically then adding to that gender inequality, some of the biases that comes in the society, and this is not right, right? So it leads, so all these kind of problems, it leads to it affects the society, it leads to stereotyping, it increases the social inequalities because sometimes based on the data, if it sees that this kind of properties or this kind of houses should be recommended to a certain community of this community, then it would always show them those houses. And the other people who can still afford those houses may never even get those recommendations. So we have to be careful of how we are using these systems who are using artificial intelligence, because it might actually be creating more inequalities in the society. Okay, when you do a Google search, right, like as simple as that, if you search on something like grandmother, you would see a very certain kind of grandmothers appearing in the search results. Now, me as an Indian person would say that, oh, I don't see any results that represent my heritage. Is that the right thing? It's not, right? So what can we do to fix those kind of biases in the artificial intelligence? And because it is run by the people and the data that is provided by people, what we can do is really bring this awareness and also be part of the ecosystem. If we see something is very skewed towards a certain kind of representation, we should voice it, we should give that feedback. We should try to make sure that all the things that we like are not a specific kind of data? Can we actually bring in that diversity? The other thing that Miss Sylvia said in the morning is very important. We have to be designing these algorithms. We have to be there putting our voice in there saying whether this data represents the diversity that we would like it to have. So I want all of you, right, to be that voice and be part of the ecosystem to make sure that we are fixing our systems, designing them with all of us and our voice in there and making it better for the upcoming generations. So a lot of responsibility on all you girls, okay? But thank you. And any questions? No questions? Okay then. All right.
Okay, so thank you so much to Ms. Divya for an amazing presentation. Okay, so our brainstorm process is gonna start, what's it called, brainstorm? Prototyping process will start right now. You guys will have until 4:30 for brainstorming, but first, I'm gonna go through a quick Figma, not demo, I'll just show you guys how to use Figma. Okay,